What's going on, guys, and welcome to Who to Sign For. Now in this series I'm giving you my recommendations on what players to sign for a specific team in career mode, but before we go on I will say that the signings you'll see aren't designed to be realistic and that the player ratings and potentials of the players may vary depending on what database you're using and how they perform for you during the season. Obviously you don't have to follow the tips, this is really just a set of guidelines to give you a hand if you're stuck for ideas and want some suggestions on what players you could sign for a certain club. This is mainly aimed at those you out there who may be new to the game and just need a little bit of advice, or for those you out there who want a few recommendations on what players to sign for a team that you may be using in career mode this year. So yes, in today's episode of Who to Sign For, guys, we are going to take a look at Borussia Dortmund of the Bundesliga in Germany, and I would definitely say this real quickly as well as you take a look at their budget, their objectives and their team as well, as they start off with a budget of £65 million, but with wage budget alteration you'll probably get up to around £71 to £72 million. Borussia Dortmund would be an absolutely fantastic team to do a career mode with. Now, their objectives in the first season are pretty tough, pretty challenging. You got to win the league title and dethrone Juventus, as well as reaching the final of the German Cup and reaching the semi-finals of the Champions League as well. So 3 very strong aims there, both domestically and in Europe as well. However, their team is just so fun. Now, they line up in a 3-4-1-2 ordinarily, and as we know, Borussia Dortmund have got such a great history of bringing through, or I should say developing, really good young talent. Then they've got some fantastic youngsters in the game. The most noteworthy two, of course, being Jadon Sancho, the English winger, and of course, the man they just signed from RB Salzburg, Haaland, the Norwegian striker, who is one of the best young players in world football. And briefly on Haaland as well, can I just say this? How is he still 79 rated? The kid is just unreal, man. He's got one of the best goal-to-game ratios in Europe. And he's still a young boy. How on earth is he 79 rated? Dude is getting absolutely... It's not right, man. Haaland should be way higher rated. When you got that kind of goal-to-game ratio at your age, it's unfair to only be 79. This guy should easily be 83, 84 in my opinion, because he's done it across multiple leagues now. He's doing it in the Bundesliga now for Borussia Dortmund. But anyway, enough of that. If I'm here talking about player ratings, I'm here all day. Regardless, as you take a look at the team, as you can see, it is a 4.5 star team you inherit, and it is a pretty decent side as well. You will notice there's quite a lot of players that are currently loaned out from Borussia Dortmund right now, and they also got 2 players that are loaned in as well. Those are Hakimi from Real Madrid, a right back / left back that in this system plays as one of the wide midfielders, and also Emre Can. He's also here on loan as well. And you've got a few players that deals that come at the end of the year. Now, personally speaking, the most noteworthy ones are Lucas Piszczek and also Mario Götze as well. I would personally let everyone go. You could possibly give a couple of those youngsters contracts if you want, but Kia has the highest potential out of a lot of them. But I personally would let them all go, apart from Mario Götze. Götze is 81 rated and 27 years old, so... yes, of course, he's in his mid-20s now, mid to late 20s, but he's still a very good player, 81 overall. I think he grows a rating as well, and as a centre-forward, he can play deeper in the central midfield role, he can play further forward as a striker as well. I would keep Mario Götze here. Even if you plan to sell him in the first season, which you can do, you'll at least increase his market valuation by giving him a new contract. So whether you plan to sell him or not, I'd still give him a new deal regardless, but personally speaking, I'd look to keep him. And as for players that are currently loaned out from Borussia Dortmund right now, there are several that are currently loaned out of the club. My number one recommendation is to bring back Toprak, as he right now is 79 rated, 29 years old, and he can either play as a bench player as part of your back three, and so it's just a play as a bench centre half instead of going into your back three, or you can look to sell him in the first season, which is what I would recommend. But as for new signings with Borussia Dortmund, I just hinted to it there with the back three here. You got a couple of great youngsters in Dan Axel Zagadou and Akanji as well. You've also got Matt Hummels too. I would recommend bringing in a new centre back for this Borussia Dortmund side, and my number one target would be the man playing for Bayern Munich right now, and I couldn't recommend anyone else to you. This guy should be your out-and-out first choice target with Borussia Dortmund. Niklas Süle, once of Hoffenheim, now playing at the Allianz for Bayern Munich, is 85 rated and thus one of the best centre-backs in the game, but he's also only 23 years old as well, with 90 potential. So he's good enough to go right into your back three straight away, of course. He'll cost you around 50 to 60 million pounds, perhaps a little bit more than that if you're unlucky. We agreed a deal of 56 million pounds But this kid, 23 years old, 6'5", 93 strength, so at his peak at 90 overall, he'll have 99 strength, 89 slide tackle, 87 stand tackle, and also interestingly enough as well with Niklas Süle, you might notice his acceleration is quite low at 58, I think it is 52 even, but his sprint speed is really high at 85, so he's quite slow off the mark, but when he gets going, he's really quick. So don't be put off by the lack of acceleration. That's quite negative, don't get me wrong, but once he gets going, he's actually really quick. So Niklas Süle's got some fantastic stats all across the board, and again at 6'5" as well, he'll be an aerial monster too. I cannot recommend Niklas Süle higher. He's German, of course, which is really nice signed players that play for the same country as the club is situated in, and yeah, at 85 rated, man, 23 years old with 90 potential and such high strength, such great defensive stats as well. Niklas Süle would be an absolute monster as part of your back three. He, Zagadou and Akanji would be a back three for many years to come once Mats Hummels starts to show signs of depreciation. So without doubt, my number one target for Borussia Dortmund Career Mode. You'd have to spend most of your budget to get him, but believe me when I tell you, he'll be worth every single penny. Niklas Süle. But following that, we sold Mahmoud Dahoud after a release clause was met for the 23-year-old. And my second recommendation for a Borussia Dortmund Career Mode would be the new goalkeeper. Now, of course, they've got Roman Bürki, the Swiss goalkeeper, who's right now, you would say, in his prime. However, on the bench, you might somewhat want someone a little bit better than your current backup goalkeeper right now. Marwin Hitz is it Marvin or Marwin Hitz? Hitz, regardless, is in his 30s right now and is going to show signs of decline pretty quickly. And you can do better than him and get younger as well. And there are several goalkeepers I recommend, but this would be a number one target here. It's Dominik Livakovic of Dinamo Zagreb. Now, like Niklas Süle, this guy is just 23 years old. He's 80 rated as well, and he's got 86 potential too. So right now in the first season, he's not going to be your number one. There's no doubt about that. You'll keep Bürki as your number one. However, he grows to be as good as, if not better than Roman Bürki when he starts hitting his potential. He's 2 ratings higher than Hitz, despite being 8 years younger than him, and of course with 86 potential as well. You're not going to need Hitz in your team once you pick up Livakovic. If you can't sell Hitz, then I'd swap him to Dinamo Zagreb. They will be interested in him, as a 78 rate goalkeeper is still very good indeed. So I'd swap Hitz to Dinamo Zagreb if you can't sell him and get a transfer fee for him naturally, and bring in Livakovic. He's on 40 grand a week in this save for a backup goalkeeper with 86 potential. That's more than acceptable. So yeah, definitely recommend Hitz. He would be definitely recommend Livakovic to replace Hitz. He's younger and he's better as well. And really, that's the theme of targets for Borussia Dortmund in this Who to Sign For episode. You'll see the third signing we managed to pick up is Florian Neuhaus of Borussia Mönchengladbach. Now, I don't know much about this youngster. I'll be the first to admit it. However, he's only 22 years old and he's 78 rated as well. Now, you would have seen earlier that Mahmoud Dahoud got sold after his release clause was met. Dahoud is 1 year older than Neuhaus, yet he's 1 rating lower than Florian as well. So that's the theme with this Borussia Dortmund Career Mode here. What we're doing is we're bringing in younger players, but they're also better with higher potential as well. Neuhaus is one of the best young German midfielders in the game, and at 78 rated at just 22 years old, this guy can play further forward or deeper with his range of stats, and will be a really good option to have as a reserve midfielder. You don't really need a midfielder here at Dortmund because they've got so many class players anyway, but after you sold Dahoud, you might want a young talent for the reserves, and Neuhaus before start week foot 2 would be a really good option for you. But as you can see here, we did try and sell Toprak to Porto for £8.7 million, and the Piszczek deal actually ended up falling through. We accepted the deal from Sevilla, but unfortunately they couldn't agree personal terms, and we couldn't sell Vanna either. You might notice in the course of this episode here, I found it really tough to sell players. I showed you my transfer list earlier, and most of the players were fringe players. I just couldn't seem to get them out of the club. They'd just rather stay here. You see Toprak declined his deal to Porto. Piszczek does end up declining his deal to Sevilla as well. Vanna also declines this deal as well. So I was having a lot of transfer talks, broken down emails throughout the course of this window, which was very frustrating indeed, because I'd rather have the cash than these fringe players here instead. But we did sell Marcel Schmelzer. Now, I know anyone that's a Borussia Dortmund fan watching this will be saying, for goodness sake, man, why would you sell Schmelzer? He's been in the club for over a decade, former captain, club legend. Why would you sell Schmelzer? Come on, man. Well, to be honest, he's in his 30s now. now, 74 rated. He's not going to get a game in your team, so you may as well sell him and begin a new era with Borussia Dortmund. And I also got a bit here for Axel Witsel, and this is quite interesting as well. The Belgian central midfielder is 85 rated and thus one of the best midfielders you've got in your team. However, after Liverpool putting a bid for him, we managed to negotiate a deal with Jurgen Klopp for £40 million. And Witsel, at 30 years old, is only going to get worse and older, obviously. And therefore, if you can sell him for around 40 to 45 million pounds, I'd definitely recommend doing so. I wouldn't put him on the transfer list in the first season. There's no need to. He's 85 rated, 30 years old. Yes, so will show signs of decline pretty quickly, but still has a role to play in your first team. But if you do get a bid naturally, and you can get around 40 to 45 million pounds, which is what we got, 40 million from Liverpool, I definitely wouldn't be against selling him, because again, you can get better and you can get younger. And after the sale of Toprak here to RB Leipzig for 7.7 million pounds, I probably could have got a bit more money for him, really. And also the sale of Piszczek, who eventually goes to Manchester United for 4.45 million pounds. When, you know, it was a blessing in disguise. He rejects that move to Sevilla as we got a bit more money for him. We had a bit more money raised into our budget and enough money to go after a new player, combined with the season ticket sales as well. And after the sale of Witsel, we would want a new central midfielder to fill in for the experienced Belgian central midfielder. And there are two targets I would recommend for you guys. And of course, one is the big dog. You got Kai Havertz of Bayer Leverkusen and Leon Goretzka of Bayern Munich. Now, either of these players would be absolutely fantastic players to replace Axel Witsel, because whilst they are both one rating lower than Witsel, they're both several years younger. Goretzka's 6 years younger, Havertz is 10 years younger, and Kai Havertz is one of the best young players on FIFA 20. He's got 90, I think it's 92, or perhaps even 93 potential, 92, 93 potential. Either way, he's got one of the highest potentials on FIFA 20. If you can afford to bring him in the first season, it would be an absolutely fantastic deal for you, because again, he'll go right into your first team to replace Axel Witsel, and again, with dynamic potential too, this guy could grow to be the highest rated player in the game when it's all said and done. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough money to bring him in. I probably shouldn't have signed Florian Neuhaus, that was my mistake, but either way, didn't have enough money to sign Havertz. However, we did put off a deal with Leon Goretzka, with Bayern Munich for Leon Goretzka, and whilst Goretzka's not quite as good as Kai Havertz, he's 4 years older and the same rating, he still has 88 potential as well, so grows to be one of the best central midfielders in the game when he's at his peak. So we agreed a deal with Leon Goretzka here, and again, it wasn't quite Kai Havertz. That was the one I wanted, don't get me wrong. However, still a very good player, 6 years younger than Axel Witsel, one rating lower, yes, with 88 potential. He's going to be much better than the Belgian was, and again, at just 24 years old too, he's got some fantastic stats. And what I like about Goretzka too, he's the sort of player that can play throughout the spine of the team. He can play further forward, he can play sitting deeper, he can play in his natural CM role, and I'd say at 6'2" as well, you could possibly retrain him to play as a ball-playing centre-back in this team with really good defensive stats as well. And you guys know I love those ball-playing centre-backs. So yeah, Goretzka would be a great signing. Obviously, Havertz would be your number one target, no doubt about it. But if you can't get Havertz, Goretzka's not a bad option. And maybe next year go after the youngster Kai Havertz instead. But after signing Goretzka for £42.5 million, we still had a little bit more money left over, and that was the advantage of going after the cheaper player. And I did try and make one more signing with Borussia Dortmund, so our fifth of the window, and that was for a new third choice striker. Now, of course, they've just signed Haaland. You don't need a new striker in the first 11, but someone for the bench or someone for the reserves, just to play a few occasional games throughout the season, in cup games and midweek games if you want. And I've got three options here. You've got Mateta, Boadu, and also Alvarez of Argentina as well. My number one target out of all these three guys, though, would be Myron Boadu. Now, I can't talk highly enough of this kid. He's 75 rated and just 18 years old, and you can get him for around his valuation, which is, I think, 11.5 mil. We paid 12 million for the teenage wonder kid, and this guy's got 88 potential, so he grows 13 ratings throughout the course of the save. And again, with dynamic potential and player training, this guy can get in to the 90s when it's all said and done as well. And I'm such a big fan of this kid as well, because he's absolutely rapid. He's got a clinical finish on him, and he's got a 4-star weak foot as well as being really agile too. This is the perfect impact sub. Young, quick, pacey, clinical finisher. Absolutely perfect young player to have, with high-low work rates as well. He's the perfect advanced forward off the bench as an impact sub, and I couldn't recommend this guy higher. And again, with dynamic potential and player training, his potential might be 88, but he can get into the 90s when it's all said and done. And again, he's just a reserve strike. You're not going to play him too much in the first couple of seasons, but as time goes on, he'll grow and grow and grow, and eventually you'll be able to partner him up top alongside the Norwegian wonder kid Haaland as well. So that was it for news signings with Borussia Dortmund. We signed 5 players in total, and again, some really great young talent coming in, and that was the theme of this window. Replacing the aging players, as you'll see by our sales here, every single player apart from Dahoud was in their 30s. Dahoud was the youngest at 23. Everyone else was 30 years or older, and every player we signed was 24 or younger. Bawadu, the youngest, 18. Livakovic at 23. Goretzka at 24, and Niklas Süle was just 23 as well. And Florian was 22 as well. So we signed younger players, we signed better players, and we signed players with more potential as well, continuing the tradition of Borussia Dortmund, nurturing great young talent and watching them develop. The question was, could we hit our strong objectives in the first season with Borussia Dortmund, win the Bundesliga, reach the final of the German Cup, and reach the semi-finals of the Champions League as well? Very tough objectives in our first season with Dortmund. Well, as you could see, it was a failure in the Bundesliga, unfortunately. We finished in second place behind, no surprise, this Bayern Munich, who finished top of the tree with 90 points, 29 wins in 34 games, only losing twice all season long. We did have the best offensive record in the division, which was nice to see, so Niklas Süle certainly helped plug the gaps in our back line there, with only 19 goals conceded in 34. Incredibly impressive. And the second place finish is still really good as well. 9 points behind Bayern. Yes, we failed the league objective, but still, it wasn't that bad. We did win the Super Cup at the start of the season, so there was silverware in the cabinet by winning the pre-season game, if you will, but we also won the German Cup as well. So in the end, there was 2 trophies in our cabinet coming in the end of the season. The Super Cup, not really important, but the DFB Pokal, we only supposed to reach the final. We did that. We went one step further and actually won the whole bloody thing. So great to see success there in the domestic cup by winning the DFB Pokal. Unfortunately, though, in the Champions League, this was also a failure as well. We were asked to reach the semi-finals in our first season in charge, and we were knocked out by Paris Saint-Germain, interestingly enough, coincidentally so, who knocked us out in the last 16. Of course, these two sides are facing in real life in the last 16 of the Champions League this year. So we made out of the group, but unfortunately were knocked out in the first knockout round by the French giants. So yes, in the end, it was an interesting season with Borussia Dortmund. I can't call it a success, obviously not, but it didn't really feel like a catastrophic failure either. Yes, we failed 2 of our 3 objectives and only hit the cup objective. However, we won the DFB Pokal, so there was silverware in the cabinet, and to finish in second in the Bundesliga against Bayern Munich, who, as we know, pretty much always dominate the Bundesliga, developing the young talent in the first season, and also still managed to reach the knockout stage of the Champions League. I didn't think it was that bad of a season. Yes, it wasn't a successful one. I'm not going to try and dress it up as one, but I don't think it was that bad either. It was a so-so kind of season for you. It was kind of mediocre, if you will, but regardless, not too bad. Could have been a lot worse, that's for sure. And certainly wasn't as bad as I think it would have looked on paper. But regardless, as for the young talent, they all grew really nicely in the first season as well. Livakovic didn't play a single game, but still grew 3 ratings. Again, that's why you pick up Dominic for your backup role as a backup goalkeeper for Roman Berkey. He'll still be your number 1 Berkey, but Livakovic will be a great safe pair of hands for the bench and a good young talent too. Niklas Süle grew 2 ratings to 87 overall in his first season, and with 16 clean sheets in 40 games as well. Had a really solid first season with Borussia Dortmund, and again, he is my number 1 target for a Borussia Dortmund career mode. He will be a fantastic addition to your young back 3 minus Mats Hummels. Leon Goretzka had a quite disappointing first season, I'll be honest. Only 2 goals in 31 games in the Bundesliga, but he did grow 2 ratings, so still pretty nice to see some attribute growth on the 25-year-old now. Florian Neuhaus, surprisingly so, played 11 games in the first season with Borussia Dortmund. I didn't see that happening, but scored 2 goals in 2 DFB Pokal games on our way to winning the cup, and grew 3 ratings in his first season as well. So nice minutes there from the youngster, and at just 23 years old, growing 3 ratings, now 81 overall. He's just going to get better and better as the years go by, no doubt about that. And as for Jadon Sancho, I want to show him real briefly as we get to him here. 11 goals in 43 games. Unfortunately, I did get a serious injury midway through the season, which was a shame. Bawadi didn't score a single goal, unfortunately. 11 games, no goals for Bawadi, but still grew 3 ratings in the first season, so might not have scored any goals, but still some nice attribute growth there on the young 19-year-old now. And as for Haaland, I know you guys are really interested about this. He scored 24 goals in 34 games in the Bundesliga, and was one of the top scorers in the Bundesliga this year. Sorry, was the top scorer even in the Bundesliga, so what a season for the young Norwegian kid that was. And a decent season for Borussia Dortmund overall as well. Yes, we failed 2 of our objectives, but even so, the young stars started to nurture it. The young stars started to develop really quickly, which is always nice to see. and of course to win the DFB Pokal, get some silver in the cabinet, finish in second place, closest threat to Bayern's title, and also make it out of the group as well. It wasn't the best of seasons, but it certainly wasn't that bad either. But that was today's episode of Who to Sign For, guys. If you have enjoyed it, and if you did enjoy today's episode, then please do drop a like. Much love to you all, have a fantastic night, and I'll see you for the next episode of Who to Sign For very soon.